Okay, hi everyone. Apologies for the slightly late start. I was having some technical issues. But if you can't hear me or you can't see my screen at any point throughout the webinar, please just feel free to let me know in the chat. And also, if during the webinar, like halfway through, if we suddenly if I get kicked out of the webinar, I will join back ASAP. So please just hang in there. It'll only be like 1 or 2 minutes. I don't know why sometimes this happens. Um, but yeah, just a disclaimer. So don't go anywhere if there's any technical issues. I will quickly join back. Okay. Okay, so welcome to today's webinar. For those of you guys who've just joined, I'm Melanie and I'll be your speaker for today's breaking news and setups webinar. So for today's session, if you guys have any requests for any charts that you want me to go through, feel free to just pop them in the chat or in the Q&A section, and I'll try and go through as many charts as we can during this time. Yeah. Okay, so if there's no other issues, let's go ahead and get started. So, as per usual, a disclaimer and risk warning. This information is not considered as investment advice or investment recommendation, but instead a marketing communication. Our products are traded on margin and carry a high level of risk, and it is possible to lose all your capital. These products may not be suitable for everyone, and you should ensure that you understand the risk involved. Okay, I'm Melanie and I'll be your speaker for today. I'm an investment analyst at Rocket, who are finalists for Best FX and Equity Research in the years 2019 to 2021. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're gonna start by looking at, I'm going to pull out our economic calendar and then we can get started by looking at this week's fundamental forecast. Okay, I'm gonna remove my video just so that, you know, hopefully my Zoom doesn't crash. But as long as you guys can see my screen and can hear me, then that's fine. Okay? Okay. You can see my screen, the economic calendar. Okay, should be all good. So for this week, on Monday we had China's new loans data. Tuesday we had China's GDP. GDP, which came out to be higher than forecasted. And then our industrial production, retail sales, and Euro's German ZEW economic sentiment. Canada, we also have the inflationary data, so CPI data over here, which came out to be the month-on-month data came out to be the same as forecasted at 0.1%. We also have the US core CPI data, which came out to be lower than forecasted at 0.2%. On Wednesday, we have UK's BOE Gov Bailey speaking CPI data for the UK as well at 3.6%. We also have US PPI data, which came out to be 0.0% lower than forecasted. For today, we had Australia's employment change and unemployment rate. We also have UK's average earnings index, claimant count change, and today we are still awaiting US core retail sales, unemployment claims, and Philly Fed manufacturing index. And on Friday, we have US FOMC member Waller speaking. And that is all of the fundamental events or the economic events for this week. Now, let me pull out my charts. I am recovering from a bit of a cold, so if you hear a bit of sniffling or you can't hear me properly, please let me know in the chat. But yeah, that's why I sound a bit weird for today. Okay, so we have a request in the chat. We're gonna get started with DXY first, and then we'll take a look at gold, and then subsequently any other requests that you guys might have. Okay, so let's start with DXY. So I like to start by looking at our higher time frames, just so we get an idea of the overall direction of price. So on our weekly time frame, we have prices generally dropping, although there has been a slight uptick recently. Now on our daily time frame, we see that same overall downtrend. Okay, we have prices moving in this descending trend line. Excuse me. So next, I'm gonna go in with our horizontal lines first. So basically the um, support and resistance levels. Okay, I might move my first resistance here instead. Okay, and then a good habit is to try and pull it back as far as you can without cutting too many body. So you want to find cuts that's something like this. So if it just cuts like the wicks, that's fine. You don't really want to, yeah, this is fine because it cuts just the wicks. Okay. Next, I'm going in with our first support. Okay, I'm gonna pull back our first support all the way here. And then for my second support, I'll place it at this overlap level here. Okay, now going in with our Fibonacci levels to support these horizontal levels. Okay, so my 161 lines up nicely, so that's the 127 over here. So what I'm using here is called the Fibonacci extension. Excuse me. So it's basically a Nike tick shape. So this is the shape that we look for. If it's inverted, which is what we're looking at here, it's basically upside down of that. So here is the Nike tick shape. Okay. And for this method, we're basically looking at the levels that are greater than 100. So namely the 127 and 161, but occasionally we also look at the 138 or the 141. Okay, now I'm going in with our projections. Okay, and you can see that my 100% lines up with that second support. So it doesn't have to line up exactly, because when it comes to Fibonacci levels, we are looking for confluence areas more so than specific levels, which is basically when two or more Fibonacci levels each other, which is what we're seeing here at the second support. Okay. Um, Next, let's see, do we have any other levels? I think we have a normal retracement here, just from the top to the swing low there. Okay, and you can see my 20, actually, I'll keep this, hmm, okay, I might move this up here. Okay, no, I'm just gonna keep it at this 23% level. Okay, in line with all of these swing lows. Okay, and then for this retracement, we're just gonna be keeping the 23 level here. Sorry about that. Okay, so next I'm going in with a big retracement over here, just to see if we have any levels lining up with that second support or first support. Okay, I'll keep this 75, even though it doesn't line up exactly with either. But like we mentioned earlier, it's not really about lining up with a specific level. It's more about looking for confluence areas. Okay, so here we have prices. Overall, it does look like, oops, sorry about that. The overall trend is pretty bearish. So we normally would advise to follow the trend. But over here recently, it does look like prices have started pushing upwards a little bit. So let's take a look at what our indicators tell us. So I like to start with the Ichimoku and MACD because at one glance you can tell exactly what the signals are. So Ichimoku, you can see prices are moving below the cloud. MACD is giving us a bullish signal. Okay, and then EMA, SMA, and SAW. Okay, recently you can see prices crossing over both or all three of those indicators, so that gives us a bullish signal. Looking at our Bollinger Bands. Okay, Bollinger Bands. Um, this isn't really telling us much right now. Okay, because I like to only use Bollinger Bands when it's giving us a clear signal. Okay, so right now this isn't really a clear signal, so I'm not gonna use this. And let's look at our RSI and stochastic. Okay, I'm gonna remove the MACD as well as EMA, SMA, and SAW, simply because that doesn't match our analysis here. Okay, so if you look at stochastic, prices are currently at what we call a hidden resistance level. Okay, which is basically where at all of these points where it's touching the this resistance level that we've identified, price is actually moving in a downtrend. So it's making lower highs. Okay, so this is a um sign that prices might continue to drop, especially because if you look at this, where price is currently at, it's touching the resistance level there. Previously, when this happened, which was over about here, okay, let me zoom in a bit. you can see prices started to drop as well. Okay, prices dropped here. And so subsequently, we are thinking that's going to happen again here. Okay, and that is for stochastic. For RSI, it's not really telling us much. Let's see. Also for stochastic, it's moving above the overbought regions at the 80 level here. Whereas for RSI, it's not really giving us in an oversold or overbought signal, so I'm not going to use this. Okay, I do think it might continue in this uptrend for a little, not uptrend, but on this upward motion for a little bit longer. But I don't think it will hit that first resistance there. I think it will continue to move downwards. Um, if you want to play it safe, you can wait for price to break out of that first support before going in for a sell to the second. Um, yeah, that's just extra confirmation. Okay, particularly because our second support is also such a big confluence area here, and confluence areas tend to attract price. Um, over here. So we might not see, yeah, so prices are likely to be attracted to this such a large area here. Okay, any questions? Okay, if there are no questions, let's move on to looking to, okay, yeah, let's look at gold. Okay, so oftentimes with gold and DXY, they tend to move in opposite directions of each other, aka they tend to be inversely correlated. So let's take a look at gold and the DXY chart that we've just analyzed. So with DXY, we're expecting it to continue to drop, but with gold, you can see here the trend is quite bullish here. So especially if you identify any of these, the dips or the swing highs, you can see it's quite obvious in just by looking at the shape of both of the charts. Okay, however, sometimes during geopolitical uncertainty or um yeah, times basically some occasionally there may be times where gold and DXY move in the same direction. Okay, so now let's look at gold on the weekly time frame. We can see it generally moving in this uptrend. Although it's currently testing this resistance level here. Okay, now let's look at it on the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, you can kind of see prices still pushing in this kind of bullish flag shape here. Okay, we also have an ascending trend line here, this dotted line. You can see it has 3 touches on it, which is exactly what we need for a valid trend line. Okay. Um, Now let's go in with our other horizontal levels as well. Okay, I'll go in with a first support here. Maybe a second support right at this overlap level. Okay. Um, Now let's go in with our Fibonacci levels. Okay, so the 38 lines up with our first support and the 61 as well, or rather the 50. So 38 and the 50%. Okay, next I'm going in with just a projection. Okay, 61 lines up, 78 also lines up. Okay, oh yes, if you're unfamiliar with projection, what it is you're basically looking for this kind of a zigzag lightning bolt shape. Okay, so I've drawn it out here, the one that we're looking at here. Okay, and then for this we use the 61, 78, 100, occasionally the 127 level as well. But normally we just stick to these 3. Okay, I think that's all the levels that we have. So now let's take a look at our indicators, starting with Ichimoku and MACD. So prices are moving above the cloud, so it's giving us a bullish signal. You can currently see that prices are bouncing off of our ascending trend line as well. Yeah, so I'm gonna use that as a signal. So our MACD is giving us a bearish signal, so I'm gonna get rid of that because it doesn't match our analysis. Let's look at our EMA, SMA, and SA as well. Mm, excuse me. You can see our parabolic SA is moving below price, so that does support our analysis, whereas the EMA and SMA, it's kind of transitioning now. Okay, you can't really tell whether it's moving above or below. So I'm gonna hide this for now. Okay, and then let's take a look at our momentum indicators. So the RSI and the stochastic. Okay, you can already see the RSI isn't really telling us much, and it hasn't really been giving us much of a signal uh recently. Okay, because you can see it's just kind of fluctuating in the middle line there, and it's not really telling us if prices are overbought or oversold. On the other hand, if you look at stochastic, it looks like it's moving upwards. You can see the line is moving in this upward trend. Let's see if we have a trend line here. Okay, we do. So that does support our analysis. Okay. And it also hasn't moved into the overbought regions yet. So this is a good sign that prices will continue moving upwards. Okay. So what I will say for this is that prices may not be able to push upwards all the way until this line, until our first resistance. Okay. Um, I say that because looking at all of our indicators, it seems like the it's still not a very clear trend. So I don't want to tell you guys that prices will definitely hit this line here at our first resistance. But so what you can do is you can either do like a partial profit or a take profit somewhere in the middle. It's kind of a intermediate resistance level. Maybe somewhere here. Okay. Um yeah, just for that extra confirmation once again. Because as you guys saw, all of our indicators didn't really give us a definitive um that prices are moving in a bullish trend. Okay. Okay. Let's look at the next chart. Okay, we have a request for Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and look at that. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, we have prices generally moving in this uptrend. Now on our daily time frame as well, okay, so I'm gonna place my first resistance up here. Um, first support just at this swing high. And next, what I'm doing here is I'm using a Fibonacci projection. And let me draw out the shape. So this is the zigzag shape that we're looking for. And we're trying to see, or we're trying to project where prices might be headed towards. Okay, so my 61.8 lines up nicely. I might add a second resistance in line with that 78.6 level. So I'm just going to keep the 61 and the 78 since they are closer to where price is currently at. Okay, and my 161 lines up nicely as well. Okay, so the Nike tick shape is just over here. Okay, let's see, maybe we have another retracement here. 23% lines up. And I think we might have another Nike tick shape here. Okay, my 127 and my 161 both line up. Okay, and then now I'm going in with a projection. Okay, 78, and I think my 100% also lines up here. Okay, yep, with our second resistance. Okay, so all of our levels here do show that prices might be pushing upwards, but keep in mind we do have quite a big confluence area here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, hi. So yes, I was saying there's a confluence area here at the first resistance, which is where price is currently at, and you can already see prices kind of reversing off this level here. So you might see a bit of a rebound of that first resistance, maybe towards the first support. Um, but I think it might continue moving upwards following this upward trend. But let's take a look at our indicators and see what they say as well. So prices are moving above the cloud, so it's giving us a bullish signal. MACD you can see is also giving us a bullish signal. Let's look at Bollinger Bands. You can see prices kind of pushing above that upper band, that red band, that red line there. So that's also giving us a bullish signal. Next, let's look at our EMA, SMA, and SA. Okay, and prices are also pushing above all of those levels. I mean, all of those lines. Okay, next, let's look at the RSI and stochastic. Um, okay, just to backtrack a little bit, if you look at the Bollinger Bands, you can already see prices kind of rebounding off the upper band here. Okay, so that's basically what I mentioned earlier with this confluence area. You might see prices testing this area a little bit more. Looking at our RSI, you can see prices moving in the oversold region, but they've recently already kind of come out of that overbought region, and they are currently sitting below the 70 level. Looking at stochastic as well, that's the same thing that is showing up here. Okay, at this level here. It's currently moving below the 80 mark, so it's no longer in the overbought regions. But just in case, you might want to place your first support a little bit lower so that there's room for prices to move about. But ultimately, looking at all of our indicators here, it's giving us a pretty bullish signal. Okay, so just to reiterate, you might want to move your first support or your stop loss or whatever you call it a bit further down so that there's room for prices to move about, so that you don't get stopped out right before prices reverse and move upwards towards our first resistance or second resistance. Okay, and similar to before, you might want to place a partial take profit at your first resistance instead of going straight for the second. Because like I mentioned, this is a confluence area, quite a big confluence area, so price may not be able to break past it. Or you can wait for prices to break past it for that extra confirmation before going in for a buy. So yeah, that's entirely up to you. Just highlighting some of the key levels for you guys here. Okay, we still have some time. Do you guys have any other requests for any charts that you'd like me to go through? Yep, let's go ahead and look at euro dollar. Okay, so on our weekly time frame, we have prices generally moving upwards. Recently, there has been a drop over here. Okay, let's look at that on the daily time frame. Okay, so on our daily time frame, this will be our first resistance, our first support over here, and maybe a second support right below here. Okay, now going in with our Fibonacci levels again. Here my 38.2 lines up nicely with the second support. Here I have a Nike tick shape here. My 161 lines up nicely. Okay, my 161 lines up nicely here as well. Okay, let me draw out the shape for you guys. So there's the smaller Nike tick, and then here's the bigger one. Okay, next, okay, no. Okay, we might have a second resistance level. Okay, my 61 lines up with the first resistance, and I'm gonna put a second resistance in line with that 78. Okay, but other than that, I can't really find any other levels lining up with this second resistance here. Okay, let's take a look at our indicators now. Okay, prices are moving above the cloud. It's giving us a bullish signal. Okay, MACD, however, is giving us a bearish signal. And Bollinger Bands are also kind of giving us this bearish signal here with prices moving below that middle line. Now let's take a look at the EMA, SMA, SAR, RSI, and stochastic. Okay, prices are currently moving below the EMA, SMA, and SAR. You can see that here. Okay, and RSI, oops, where's my RSI? Okay, RSI and stochastic are both giving us pretty bearish signals here. Okay, I'm gonna remove Ichimoku because it doesn't support our analysis. Okay, so let me point out this divergence to you guys. So here prices are making a higher low, whereas on the chart or on our indicators, prices are actually making a lower low. Okay, so this is a bearish divergence here. Okay, and this kind of supports all the other indicators that's giving us a bearish signal. Okay, so I'm expecting prices to continue to drop here. Towards our second support. Similar to before, you can wait for price to actually break out of the first support before going in for a sell to the second support. Okay, any questions here? Like always, you want to make sure that your first resistance or your stop loss, that there's a bit of room for prices to move in between here, just in case it rebounds from the first support, and then you get stopped out before it continues downwards. Okay, any questions regarding the divergence or anything at all? Yep, the divergence. Okay, so um let me make this color a bit more vibrant. Okay, so the two yellow lines that I've highlighted here, if you look at the stochastic and the RSI, okay, on price, it's made a higher low in the sense that this swing low is lower than the most recent, or rather where price is at currently. But if you look at the RSI and the stochastic, you can't tell, maybe it's a bit maybe it's a bit unclear. Let me try and make it bigger. Okay, but it's made a lower low here. Okay, you can put your hash cross over here and you can see that it is slightly lower. Okay, similar to, okay, well, I guess RSI not so much. It's not so, it's only, yep, it is making a higher low, but um, you can see the trend recently is moving downwards as well. So the divergence is only working for the stochastic here, but I'm gonna keep the RSI as well because it also shows us this downtrend that we're seeing. Okay. Sorry if that was confusing. I hope I explained that properly. But yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free to let me know. Um, are there any other questions, any other requests? Yeah, okay, we can look at WTI as well. Okay, so On our weekly time frame, we have prices generally moving. Recently, it's kind of fluctuating. It's kind of moving sideways, although we do have a descending trend line here. Okay, this might actually even be a descending channel. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at our daily time frame. Okay, so this will be my first support. First resistance about here, and my second support just below here. Okay. Um, okay, let's go in with our our Fibonacci levels. Okay, my 61.8 lines up. I'm gonna move my first resistance. Actually, no. Okay, I'm just gonna keep the 61.8 here. Okay, and then I'm going in with another retracement. Okay, my 78.6 lines up. Next, for the I'm going in with a projection. Okay, my 61.8 lines up with the second support. Okay, so you can see the second support is quite a, well, it's not a big confluence area, but you can see there is a confluence area here with the 61 and the 78 lining up. Um, let's see. Okay, I think that's all the levels we have here. Okay, now going in with our indicators once again. I'm gonna do this quite fast because I think you guys kind of have got the hang of it already. So Ichimoku prices are currently moving kind of within the cloud. So it's giving us kind of this transitioning signal. So I'm not gonna use this for now. EMA, SMA, and SA prices recently crossed below all three. So this is giving us a bearish signal. Sorry about this. MACD is giving us a bearish signal as well. Let's look at Bollinger Bands, RSI, and Stochastic. Okay, Bollinger Bands not really telling us much. You can see that it is moving below the blue line, that blue middle line. Okay, let me hide the EMA and SMA. You can see here, it is moving with like below it, which is giving us a bearish signal. But I prefer, like I mentioned earlier, I prefer to use Bollinger Bands only when it's a very clear signal. So I'm not going to use this for now. Okay, and then looking at our RSI and the stochastic, it is moving downwards. If you look at stochastic, it is moving Yep, it's moving downwards. RSI on the other hand is not really telling us much here. So I'm gonna remove that. And yeah, so here we are expecting prices to continue to drop. You can see it already breaking below that first support that we've identified. And it's likely to continue to be attracted to our second support there. Yeah, especially because all of our indicators are giving us pretty bearish signals as well. Okay, any questions? If not, I think that's all I have for you guys for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you guys found this session helpful. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you guys again next week. I think you guys can see me now. Okay, bye everyone. Have a great weekend. See you guys. Bye.